Okay, it's picking me up. I just want to make sure.
So, today we're going to talk about the mural in the cafeteria. So, who's the artist?
Keith Haring.
And is he significant in the art world?
Of course, he's hugely significant. He is one of the artists that actually crossed the whole street art to a gallery guy. He's also a huge advocate in, or at least a known person in the HIV and AIDS and gay community as well. He was one of the big, I guess, promoters of ACT UP, Rise Up. And I think he was actually the guy that made the logo for them. I'm not too sure about the history of that, but I know he was involved in that movement for getting people to be recognizing that AIDS was a thing and that it needed to be recognized by everybody, not just certain communities.
Okay. So how did the collaboration between such a prominent artist and CPS come about?
From what I heard, it's actually a teacher at Wells, met him. And they were just talking one time, I think in New York City, and they're like, hey, why don't you come back to Chicago and, work with some kids or something? And he did. Okay. Yeah, he's like, sure, that sounds cool. Hey, back! Just a little quieter, all right? Doing a little... Thank you.
What is the name of the piece if it has one?
I don't know. I think it's just called the Chicago Mural.
Because that's what it said on the flag.
Yeah, okay. I don't think it ever really had an official name. I think it's just the Chicago Mural.
When and where was the piece originally made?
So it was made in 1989. I know that for sure because that's when my brother graduated high school. And to think that my brother could have actually, painted that if he was. Yeah, but no, he's not from Chicago, but he could have. He was the right age. But I guess it took place over a week, which blows my mind because the thing is like almost 500 feet long, the whole thing. But just a weekend towards the end of the school year in 1989. That's where when it was made. Where it was made was actually made outside in Grant Park, so everyone could see everybody making it while it was being made, which is so cool.
And then didn't they move it to the O'Hare Airport?
They moved part of it to 100 and some feet, got moved to Midway. The rest of it got broken up, put in storage for because it's CPS property. Some of it's missing actually, so it's pretty nasty that it never could be put back together again because there's parts of it that are missing. But yeah.
So how was the piece made? Like the materials or like?
I think it's house paint. I think it's acrylic house paint because that's what Keith Haring used to use. Not using these highfalutin fancy materials, but going for that, cheap, very large quantities of paint. And how he did that, he drew all the black lines. So he went in there and free-handed everything with black. And then his directions for the students was you get these 5 or 6 different paint colors to use and fill it in however you want. And so they got to kind of have their own ownership of what they did in the shapes. So some kids did initials and did little pictures and tagged it a little bit. Some just did a flat, color.
Was he there when they were doing it, or did he just do the lines?
Yeah, it was like a big, huge. I think they call Keith Haring Week when he was here working with the kids. I mean, this was a big artist working with CPS kids at the end of his career. Well, they didn't know that at the time it was the end of his career, but yeah, very close to the end of his career.
You already answered how long it took. What was the mural meant to represent?
That's a good question. I'm not actually sure. I think it was just to be, I mean, Keith Haring's work was always very positive and joyous. Like, none of his pieces really have a negative feel to it. Even the ones that,
bright colors.
yeah, the super bright colors, these really cartoonish lines. When you stand back and look at it, you still see figures in it, but they're never really violent. They're all just sort of living together, and it's done in small or in chunks, like the whole panel by panel, so it all fits together. And I kind of like that idea that it does fit together, that it also can be separated and displayed in different places. But I don't think it really had like an overall purpose other than getting kids together to make art with famous artists and to do something really cool.
Like, why do you think it's significant to CPS, the community, or even the city, like that the mural exists?
Because I think, especially at the time, Chicago really wasn't, we're still not really seen as a big, like, epicenter for art. It's New York, it's, London, it's Paris, even LA. But we have our own art scene here. But the thing is that he was brought here by a teacher. And I love that a teacher brought him to work specifically with students, and that's what the whole point of it was, to work specifically with students, not with other artists, not with other, people that were really fancy or well known. It was a bunch of kids. It was like 200 kids, I think it was, from different schools around CPS. And I think it's significant because it kind of bridges that gap between what's possible, what people might think is possible when it comes to fine art, and then what is actually like available to do, or like what's not even available, like what can be done. And then that legacy of, there's a piece of art that's down in the hallway that's made by a bunch of 46-year-olds, 47-year-olds, I can't do my math. Yeah, like a bunch of 47-year-olds, and a famous artist. That's kind of a cool thing to have, that giant piece of art that sort of, encapsulated that moment in Chicago history.
I also think like Chicago has like a negative reputation, like CPS
Yes.
too, and
Yes.
like Keith Haring's art, like you mentioned, was like positive.
Yes. And the thing is, when you look at it, and there was a huge portion on display a couple summers ago at the Cultural Center downtown, and there were still notes and little tags in it that said, stop the gun violence, stop shooting, and all that. And that's continuing to be a problem in Chicago. Many years later. I mean, it's 20 years old now, 30 years old. Oh my God, it's 30 years old. Anyway, to have this 30-year-old piece of art still be relevant now, that's sad, but also I think it's a connection. You see a tag on a piece of art like that, and someone can go, and that person's like the same age as my mom. It could be. I mean, I don't know if anybody's, who did that piece of art, their kid could be in high school right now.
That's cool.
Think about that. That's kind of neat.
I also think it's interesting because in Chicago, most of the art on the street is like graffiti, and
Yes.
like Keith Haring is like a professional artist at the time.
Yeah.
He's kind of did like
I mean,
both.
the other pieces that we have that are really famous are like the Picasso, and the other one that I forget the name of, the one that's black and white. I don't like that one. It's downtown. But the Picasso is like the huge famous one, but that's still like that's super old as well. And we got a few, like the big red one too, I think that's Mural. But we got a bunch of really cool ones, but nothing that's sort of young. Yeah.
That's really cool. What is the work worth outside of monetary value for Prosser?
I think that, like I was saying before, it's that connection to the past that still is relevant now. I think that it is a really cool piece to kind of contemplate this feeling of collaboration, of timelessness. I think it's a piece that's always going to be really young feeling. I hope so, at least. And I think it's kind of important because it there's so many schools that were a part of it that they don't exist anymore. That were shut down.
Yeah.
And we're one of the few that is still around. I mean, like Wells and Steinmetz and a few other schools that are just going to hopefully stay. I think that's really important to show that some of these schools that don't exist anymore, they did. And there's some sort of legacy there for them. And it's sort of sad because the way that how volatile CPS can be sometimes when they shut down schools and consolidate and, rename schools and all that. I think it's kind of necessary to have this to be sort of a legacy piece that's sort of a touchstone to that time of CPS history.
How did Prosser get a piece? Did it just randomly happen?
Sort of, yeah. I didn't know about it until it actually was on the wall. And what happened was, I talked to Dr. Shaw and I said, how the heck did this happen? And he said that basically the holders of this, the curators at CPS that had this in storage, decided they needed to put it out there for everyone to, enjoy. So all of the existing schools that had participated in the mural, they were offered a place, or pieces of it, panels of it, if they had a place to display it. And we just happened to have a perfect place to display it, so that's how we got it.
I remember I walked in and I was like, what is that?
Yeah, I'd freaked out. And I went and grabbed Miss Richards, and I said, am I looking at this? Is this real? And she's like, oh my, we were like, not wanting to walk near it. We're like, wanted to touch it but not touch it,
I don't know how they brought it in.
No idea how it got installed at all.
They didn't make an announcement either. It was just there.
It just showed up.
Yeah, and even after.
Yeah, and I had a heart attack afterward. It was like, when I saw it in the hallway, I thought, this can't be real.
Do you have any concerns about the safety of the piece or preservation?
I do and I don't. So it was on display outside, open to the elements. It was on display, uncovered at Midway Airport for years. So it got damaged there too. When you look at it, you see a lot of wear and tear. And I'm like, it makes me nervous to think that someone's going to be a jerk and tag it or draw on it or something. But at the same time, that was Keith Haring, though. He was a street artist originally. He was spray painting in subways and such. So he was never really an artist that made stuff that was really meant to be permanent. So I have to let go. And, if it was under plexiglass or something, it'd be shiny, it'd be hard to see. It wouldn't be real, it'd be fake in a sense, where it's like, if it's behind plexiglass, you just can't interact with it as well. I always
just
feel
in the hall and you can touch it.
Yeah, I always feel, and then the plastic was all scratched up, and I think it's gonna be fine the way it is. If it does get damaged, then just have to deal with that.
Sometimes I see students drag their hands or hit it.
Yeah, I saw a poster taped to it too one day, and I took it off. I'm like, come on, it's $1 million piece of work. I have no idea how much it's worth, but the whole entire thing I think is worth millions. But
it's just cool that we have it.
It's really cool that we have it. I love that piece. Every time I walk by, it makes me smile.
What are your hopes for what the piece will? What are your hopes for what the piece's presence in Prosser will inspire for its students?
I think the same thing that I always wish that all art will do is make somebody wonder and ask more questions. Whether the wonder is, where did this come from? Maybe they'll get a little history lesson. Maybe they'll look at it and see the tags and notice they're all 1989 and wonder, why is there a piece of art here from 1989? Or maybe they don't even recognize it's a piece of art. They probably think it's somebody saved someone's garage door and thought it'd be kind of cool to stick it up on a wall, because that's kind of what it looks like. But that wonder, I think that what I love about art is that it invites people to find out more. And I think Keith Haring is a great artist to find out more about, because he is such a positive, interesting person. It's sad that he died so young. He died in his 30s.
He died of AIDS, right?
Yeah, 9 months after the piece was finished. He died 9 months after that. So it just, you're touching on a bunch of things here. You've got a piece of art that is made by somebody who was actively dying when he was making it, knowingly so, more than likely. And then you have kids that were also working on it that were seeing people die, that have had people die in their lives violently. So you have these two really horrible things that are kind of intersecting it, making something beautiful. I love that. So I hope a kid, if they wonder and question about it, would kind of find that in their, inspection of the piece.
How will having the piece be a benefit for students? I know you took your visualized class downstairs to see it, and that was cool. Talk about it.
I mean, it's neat because I feel like a lot of art is intangible. I think a lot of art to students is elsewhere. I think you have to get in the bus, you have to get on the train, you have to go downtown, you have to make a big deal out of it. But we got this cool piece of art that's sitting in our hallway now that I'm sure people who love Keith Haring would actually come and visit our school to see, just to see the piece of art. So I think it's kind of neat that is an immediate, in-your-face accessibility to art that we have in our hallway.
After you told us a bit about the piece, I told my little sister about it, and she's like, I want to go to Prosser and see it. And she's like, you guys actually have an art piece there.
People actually go to Lane because they want to see the WPA murals that they have at Lane Tech. And I feel like I've never done that. I would like to see them. But that's kind of, when do we go? I don't know, it's just a weird situation. But yeah, I think that we're now becoming our school that has a piece of art that's cool, and someone might want to come and check it out and, touch it. It makes me give the willies whenever I see people touch it. I do. I tap it once in a while just to make sure it's still there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Hope they recorded everything.